How close was the NBA to another melee involving fans? How far should fans be allowed to go when heckling players? I'm Doug Kezirian. This is Hard Pass, also available in podcast. On one hand, the headline could have said, Draymond Green finally kept his cool and avoided a suspension or even a technical foul. Perhaps his NBA-mandated anger management classes from a couple years ago are paying off. Or maybe the courtside heckler did not cross the line. Or the NBA is just soft these days. This all went down in New Orleans, where a Pelicans fan was taunting Draymond Green the entire first half until Draymond approached him during a free throw for a conversation.
The fan actually had a pretty good joke. One of the first couple plays of the game, I laid the ball up and I missed it. Tapped up, miss. Obviously, those are offensive rebounds. He's like, oh, you Angel Reese. And so I laughed. I'm like, oh, okay. That was a little funny. As the night goes on, he continues to go, you Angel Reese. And then there's a little more said with it. As a man with 4 children, soon to be 5, once you start to add the different fillers onto your Angel Reese, at a certain point, now you're disrespecting me as a man.
I actually was watching this game live and started to wonder if Draymond was going to snap. Sure, you might think that's extreme, but all it took was a water bottle back in 2004 to ignite the Malice in the Palace. A very dark day in NBA history. Pistons hosting the Pacers. We're talking Ron Artest, Rasheed Wallace, Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson. In total, 9 players suspended a combined 146 games. Commissioner David Stern certainly laid the smackdown, and the league has done everything possible since to steer away from anything like that. So here we are, nearly 21 years to the day, and Draymond possibly got to the brink of another one of those melees. Did those anger management classes prove to be the difference? The fan, Sam Green, yes, they have the same last name, 6'7" himself. So what if Draymond pushed him or started throwing punches? Kenyon Martin, a 15-year NBA veteran who retired about a decade ago, was known as an enforcer and a tough dude, and says the current NBA is different.
You grow up having fistfights, you quick to go to that, right? That's what you know, right? When you disrespect, you come from the shoulders. Somebody call you a bitch, you come from the shoulders. Somebody say something disrespectful, you come from the shoulders with it. That's just the way a lot of us grew up. These kids didn't grow up that way. So we're not expecting them that to be their first reaction when something is presented and that something negative is presented. That's not their reaction. So I don't expect them to be that way. So is it soft or whatever? However people want to classify it as.
Now, I'm never going to call Draymond Green soft, but Kenyon Martin can. And he played during an era that certainly had more physicality, let's call it. Also, he thinks Draymond has been intentional with all his altercations over the years, such as singling out Rudy Gobert, Yusuf Nurkic, LeBron. Remember, Draymond even punched teammate Jordan Poole with the Warriors. Guys Draymond knew would not retaliate or escalate further.
I think a lot of the things and the people who he has done things to has been calculated. It's just, I don't think, it's not spur of the moment things. It ain't reactionary things. It's people, and I said, it's just people who he hasn't hit someone or did something to someone and someone's instant reaction is the next step, right? Everybody complains, everybody looks for the refs to break things up.
Join the conversation and let me know if you agree with Kenyon Martin. Has Draymond singled out the guys that won't retaliate? Is the current NBA soft? We certainly think that, but the league has sort of enforced that. Are these players actually soft, or is that just the new league rules? Has Draymond been calculated? I am unsure I agree. After all, Draymond did kick Steven Adams where it counts, and Adams, well regarded as one of the toughest dudes in the league. However, it can really just be a math thing because there are only a couple guys in a league that meet Kenyon Martin's criteria, and there's like 500 total players in the league. So maybe just the ones that do meet the criteria haven't crossed paths with Draymond Green. Now, I think this incident brings up another topic that is far more interesting than Draymond Green's toughness. And that's, where do you draw the line for fans? We obviously know going onto the courts, you can't do that. We obviously know pushing players you can if they go in, the momentum carries them into the courtside. But we don't know exactly what Sam Green said throughout the entire first half, other than he initially mocked Draymond's knee bounds by calling him Angel Reese, which was very clever, and even Draymond acknowledged it, a little tip of the cap there. But can you police comments from all fans throughout the entire game? And where do you draw that line? How do we know what's going to set off a player? No foul language was used, allegedly. The reason this matters is because basketball is unlike any other sport. The fans are right there on the court. There's no glass like we have in hockey. The fans are not separated like football and baseball with a lot of distance. They're right there on the court. That's why the league will suspend any players that leave their bench and get involved in a fracas. They don't want another Malice in the Palace. Fox, an Outkick personality, Clay Travis, shared a DM exchange with Sam Green after the incident, and here's what Sam wrote to Clay. I meant no disrespect to women's basketball or Angel Reese. I was only trying to get in Draymond's head because he's a whatever. Clearly it worked. Draymond told me to blank his blank in the first quarter. I never used any expletives or profane language. I've been kicked out of several games for heckling players, but never have had one come up to me in my face. A 14-year veteran who is the heartbeat of the Warriors is not a tough guy. He's soft. As a fan, I believe you have every right to heckle as long as it's respectful. Like I said, I didn't curse, talk about his kids, wives, baby mamas, etc. Now, clearly, Sam Green feels he was completely in bounds, let's call it, or within the rules of his heckling of Draymond Green. But here's also a guy admitted that he's been kicked out of a bunch of games, but he maintains he's never crossed the line. So over the years, as we take a step back and look at this from a macro perspective, we all, as collective fans, perceive athletes as commodities in many ways, whether it's playing fantasy football or fantasy sports, or just memorizing their names, or sometimes they wear full uniforms and have helmets. So there's been sort of the commodity component to how we process athletes. They've always felt distant from us. But I now think that barrier has eroded considerably thanks to social media, allowing access to fans that never existed before. But still, some fans do feel that players are there for them, whether it's because they bought a ticket or there's just that commodity vibe. You may not feel that way, and that's great, but some fans do, which is why we have had so many incidents over the years. And by incidents, I mean fans that clearly have crossed the line, whether verbal or just physical, maybe a push here and there. But in the gray area, how do we determine what's crossing the line? If Draymond threw a punch, does that mean the fan went too far? Now, because Draymond kept his cool, we can all laugh about it in the Angel Reese joke. But what if he did not? After all, maintaining composure has not exactly been Draymond Green's strength over the years. So is his reaction the actual arbiter of the fan's proverbial line? I think about the hypothetical in a lot of these cases. If Draymond got physical, would the fan have been banned? I'd like to think the league would wait, gather all the facts, and then make a reasonable conclusion. But I highly doubt that would have occurred. They would have been more results-oriented with their decision. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Let me know if you think I'm crazy and join the conversation, weigh in on this matter. I'm very curious. Do you think the fan went too far? How close do you think we were to a brawl? Maybe not to the degree of the Malice in the Palace, but there could have been something that spilled into the crowd, players on the court getting involved, security. I mean, I think we were really close because they were obviously face to face. Time now for fans in the stands, and this is when we get to recognize our audience or our fans in the stands and the comments section on the YouTube page. And I like to pick out a couple and respond here, but just want to encourage everyone to please like and subscribe the show. It really helps us with the analytics, which are just so important in this YouTube world. It's the currency that matters. So please, and then let us know your thoughts, what you like, what you dislike about the show, things you want to see more of, less of. Constructive feedback is always welcome, and just, random questions as well. So last episode was about the NFL officiating and just how ridiculous it's gotten in certain situations, and the optics of the league are certainly deteriorating. How much? Well, that's debatable, but the subjective calls and the judgment of officials just matter so much. So here's one from Ohio against the world. Okay, so we know where he's from. The Browns lose 4 to 6 games a year on absolutely fascinating phantom calls. Then people ignore it and say, but it's just the Browns, dirt. So it's funny. I get it. They're a punching bag, and sometimes officials do think less of the bad teams in a lot of ways, like the Browns. And sometimes, flip side, no offense to Ohio against the world, but sometimes every fan thinks the refs are always against them. They always overlook some calls that went their way. Every play-by-play guy gets accused from each side, thinking they're a homer for that team. So that's kind of funny when you hear those comments on social media. But in general, the phantom calls are too common, and it's ridiculous. And that's what we have technology. You know, VAR exists in soccer. Why aren't we using that in the NFL for everything? Not just the sky judge for spots and turnovers. We should also use it for judgment calls as well. Andrew Denise, apologize if I'm butchering your name. The worse your team is, the more calls seem to go the other way or don't get made at all, whatever is convenient. Honestly, I know it's a tongue-in-cheek comment, but it's not that crazy. Officials do know how bad teams are, and sometimes they bully them or pick on them or look for certain things, or at least there's a confirmation bias in that regard, whereas the good teams kind of get away with stuff. Is that league mandated? Well, it depends who you ask. Would the Chiefs get sort of the red carpet treatment on the way to the Super Bowl in years past? But that's really just conjecture, but you never know. I do think it is funny that refs sometimes do look for that, sort of are more inclined to call penalties against bad teams because they think that's what's expected to happen. For sure. I think that happens in all sports. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Hard Pass. We so appreciate you tuning in and then getting involved in the conversation in the comments section. Want to hear from all of you out there. Definitely get involved and let us know your thoughts, and we will pick a couple of the comments in the next episode.